Hello, you're listening to the Soul Sing podcast, and I'm Jason Paul. It's lovely to have you here with me. Now, in this episode today, I'm also going to be going back into my treasure trove to find another amazing episode, actually. And it was another one that was recorded over a year ago. And when I came across it, I thought, do you know what? This episode is what I really wanted to share with you today. So this episode is all about remembering the intelligence within you. I'm going to be speaking to a hypnotist called Stephen Towell, and Stephen's work in this conversation isn't about being fixed, guided, or told what's wrong. It's about access. It's about accessing the subconscious, the emotional body, and the part of you that already knows how to heal. So at its core, this episode explores how the mind learns through experience. And that's a really interesting topic just in itself. We're also going to talk about beliefs are formed to protect us. And that's another really interesting concept. And how healing happens not through force, but through gentleness, safety, and awareness. So it's a grounded, non-performative conversation about hypnosis as a bridge, not something done to you, but something that helps you to reconnect with yourself. Now, I've had hypnosis. I will always remember I came out the back of a relationship. I was in Manchester and I went to a hypnotist because I had terrible anxiety. And did it do anything for me? I think it did, because it highlighted to me some of the issues and things that I needed to work on. But the hypnosis in itself for me wasn't something that I said massively worked. However, I've heard so many people that it has worked. And I must say, I only had a couple of episodes. But Stephen's conversation is very, very interesting. And I think you're going to enjoy this one. So I'll leave you there. So, Stephen, firstly, a massive warm welcome onto the Soul Sing podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a delight to have you on. So I've been very excited to talk to you because hypnosis is something that I have found to be, well, I've been very curious about it for a very long time. So I think we can have a really interesting conversation today. But take us back in time. Tell us about you, because I know that your interest in hypnosis started when you was at the tender young age of 13.
Yeah, that's true. It was something that I guess as a young child, I was always very curious. So I was always fascinated by ghost stories, by anything spiritual, anything unexplained. And at 13, I can remember watching a show called, I think it was called World of Sport. So this goes way back. This was, I think it had things like Big Daddy and all these different sports. And I think I seen the wrestling, and there was this wrestler that did. Well, it was all acted out, but this wrestler was supposed to hypnotize these two guys, and then they start fighting themselves. So I think that's where I first probably became a little bit interested and thought, what is this hypnosis? And I can remember trying to hypnotize like my brother, my cousin with a watch, and nothing worked really, but it was a curiosity that really started back then, and it carried with me. I think I still was always interested in all this unexplained stuff, the ghost stories, the who are we, what are we. I was always fascinated. And about 17, that's where I got a book from a library back in 1991, where there was no internet. It's starting to show my age.
The good old days of a library, rummaging through the shelves, Stephen. I remember those days, just about.
Yeah, information wasn't as accessible as it is these days, so you had to go and digging, and that's what I did. I went and learned hypnosis at 17 from a book, very roughly. And my first I guess subject was my little brother, who was 6 years old, and had him picking daisies out of carpet, and I thought, wow, this works. And then I did a past life regression with him, which again was obviously something I'd seen somewhere and was curious and thought, how does this work? And there he was.
Past life regression at 13. I can't even think that many 13-year-olds are even.
Well, I was 17 by this time now.
Oh.
So I grew up a little bit, but my little brother was only 6. So he was this guy who was married with a kid, and he was worried about a skin disease that he had, and it was going to die, and he would leave his family behind. This is a 6-year-old to tell me all this stuff. So that's kind of where I started, where it all really kicked off, and it's just been with me ever since, really.
What an interesting story. And especially even at 17 to be, most 17-year-olds aren't thinking about past lives or, that's interesting that it was so young. So your interest peaked in this obviously at a young age. Where did it go from there? How did this kind of unfold? Because you do this full time now. So
Yeah. So at that point, it was a curiosity. It was a hobby, maybe. And I was hypnotizing anybody that would like to be hypnotized at that time. So it was friends and my mum's friends. People would be coming up to try this out and doing past life regression, and it was fascinating. But eventually, it was getting a bit like boring because it was like people after person just coming up to. So my life did go in a different direction. I guess I went out and I became an accountant and been in a band. I was a singer and a musician at one point as well, that at the same time as actually being the accountant. But as time ticked on a little bit, I guess I forged a career, done quite well in that whole world. But eventually I sort of knew that it was time I started rekindling all the hypnosis. So I had been doing it and I had been really interested. Way back in 2010, I think I remember reading a book from a guy called Dr. Michael Newton, who had done something like 7,000 test cases with past life regression, moving past the death point just to see where does it go next. And all these people were coming up with similar things. So I was curious again. And for me, I thought, well, I know how to do past life regression. This is just almost like the extension of it. It's something that I just never taken it past that death point. And so I kept doing it. And eventually I started doing a lot more training in the clinical sort of side of hypnosis. So helping people with anxieties, depressions, mindset issues, blocks, a lot of inner child type stuff. So it really, I learned a lot. And when I learned it, the reason I was learning that was to really, I thought, there's a few people who can struggle a little bit with sessions. So I thought, is there something that I need to learn more about on hypnosis? So I went on this exploration, reading lots of books, more books, courses, became a pretty good clinical hypnotherapist and thought, do you know what, this is pretty cool that this can help change people's minds and move them past blocks and issues that they have. And so it's sort of kind of carried on and then resigned from my role, which was a business finance partner at a big media company, and off I went full time. No fear for some reason. I think it's knew that this was what I was supposed to be doing, and I've never looked back. And one day, leaving a really secure, good job, which security was something actually that I was very dependent on. It was probably even a fear there that what would happen if I couldn't pay bills, and that didn't seem to even affect me. And then I went, it was like it was supposed to be. I think that's what it seemed to be. It was all supposed to happen as it did. And here I am these years later, doing it full time, as you said.
Interesting. You mentioned past life regression. I'm going to delve into that first of all. What is it?
Yeah, it's so it's been around for a long time, but I guess it probably has its basis in reincarnation. So it's the idea that, and that's been around for probably thousands of years, but it's the idea that we return to Earth to relive another life again. And so it's almost like, it's a bit, the way I always think about it is a bit like a computer game where you come in and you take in a character or an avatar or something, and then you play out this game, and then you can come in and you do the game again, but you do it from a different perspective, from a different character this time. So past life regression is really just helping people to, well, sort of focus in the mind on these aspects that sit more unconsciously in our mind, and to try and bring it forward so that we can understand who we were, what we were learning. Is there some things from these lives that affect us now, and to try and help and heal that? Because the way I see it is, if I said to you to go back to when you started school, and from primary one, and that very first day, start writing down everything that you did that day, and then day two, everything that you did all the way till you finished high school, you would probably say, I have no clue. I couldn't even do that. I don't remember 99% of it. I can remember little glimpses of maybe a bully type period. It might have been a time a teacher wrote a story or read your story, or maybe a day to a zoo or something, or day trip. So you may have little glimpses and memories, but generally, probably about 99% of all those days learning and are all forgotten. But you have the accumulation of the knowledge. So if you think about, you can read, you can write, you know about history, you know about maybe some geography stuff. So you have all that accumulated ability from the experiences. So you don't need to remember it because you sort of live it in a way. And for me, that past life is the extension of that. So we have all this unconscious ability, unconscious learning and growth that sits maybe within our soul, that plays itself out in our life. But sometimes it may have been a trauma that happened in our life or something else. So what past life can do is help. It may be affecting you now. So you may have a fear of water, for instance, because you drowned in another life. So by helping you to explore that and to realize that it's a rational fear that belongs somewhere else, and helps people to move on from that. So it has its healing perspectives as well as its, I guess, just curious and interesting and finding out who we are and understanding ourselves a little bit more.
And why do you think that? And I do know about past life regression, but I always find it interesting to hear other people's, the way they describe it and the analogies. I think the analogy that you used there was a very good one, actually. Why does what's happened to you potentially in a previous life? Why might that? What's happened to you with your soul in a previous life? Why might that be affecting you in this life? And why is it? Because I'll give you the context behind why I'm asking the question. I am deeply curious about what my past lives have been, and I want to find out more because I think that might answer a few questions myself, or maybe some of the deep-rooted beliefs that I have myself.
Yeah. It's you can ask the same question, what's happened to you in this life that affects you now? So it could have been, like we said, it could be bullied at school, and now you've got this social anxiety around people because there's a part of your mind that thinks people hurt me, people are nasty to me, and that plays itself out. You sort of react in that way and that's the way the mind works. The mind works by learning and associating to experiences so that it can deal with new experiences. So that is the process of the mind. But past life for me is just that extension again. Again, another example could be that you were, I don't know, common ones like witches or something. We call them witches, but we could really probably call them herbalists. So people that know about nature and know about how to use plants and medicines. And going back, there's some people that have actually had this experience where that's what they did. They used herbs and plants to create medicines, but maybe other people thought that was some kind of magic or some evil thing, so that person may have been killed. So what it may then transpire in this life is that person they've got this ability, this underlying sort of want to do what they're really good at and be able to help people. But they may then have this fear, they may have this something blocking them from doing that, because deep down somewhere there's a belief that I will be killed if I do this sort of work. So it can play itself out in our current life. So it's bringing you back to that idea of accumulation, that all experience that we go through creates who we are and how we present ourselves, how we speak, how we interact. And really the past life for me is just, it's the extension, it's the deeper understanding of a bit more about who we are and the way that we may, even the way that we may need to look at and resolving limitations that we might have in life, all based on maybe older experiences.
Very interesting. I want to kind of talk about hypnosis firstly. So I've had my own experience. I was getting crippling anxiety when I was in my mid-20s, when I'd just broken up with actually, no, I hadn't broken up with my partner. My partner at the time, honestly, looking back now, Stephen, he wasn't particularly nice, but as we do when we were in it, I thought, it was the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
I was getting really bad anxiety, and he sent me off to a hypnotherapist, and at the time, did it work? Well, I think I do think it helped, but I think that I'm not sure if the lady was, the right therapist for me or not. I guess the first thing I want to ask about hypnosis is, does it work with everyone, or do you have to be a certain type of, profile for it to work?
Yeah, it's many answers to that. So I think the first thing to think about is that, what is hypnosis? Now, my understanding of it is that it's a state of focus. It's about helping someone to focus their minds into, I guess, these limiting parts or these past life regressions or these experiences that have created blocks or limitations. So that's what hypnosis is. There's a bit of a misconception, I think, and there's a sort of style, a way of doing hypnosis where people just read a script to you that's supposed to have metaphor and suggestion built into it to help you to change. And sometimes that works as well. But
see, I've had it with the lady with the script, actually. And I was querying at one point what what am I paying for? Why am I? Because you could tell it was the same script for every person, and that it did make me sort of go,
So there's a massive divide in the hypnosis world with people that do scripts. They call it scriptnosis, and other people that. For me, I like to work with the person. So again, I think, as you say, a script it comes from probably work from a guy called Dr. Milton Erickson, who would tell stories. And he was an amazing guy way back to the 50s, I think. He was around about that sort of time, 50s, 60s. But he was a guy who would tell stories, but within the stories, there'd be embedded suggestion. It would be sort of almost a story that relates to the person's, what their unconscious mind needs to give them the resolution to whatever their problem is. So scripts kind of probably came out of that a little bit, where people, they write this nice flowery story that is supposed to have like anchors built in. So anchors is to try and lock in that change type of thing, maybe associate it to other behaviours or other events that may happen. Yeah, there's other things like, so there's a metaphor of the story, there's the sort of the suggestion type of thing. So there's that way of working. The way that I try to work with hypnosis is I recognise it in a parts way. So it's like the mind is many, many parts, a bit like ego states or personas. So if you think about, here's an example, someone might come to your front door and it's your best friend. So you will react with a whole set of unconscious responses. It may be that your pitch of your voice may go way up. You may go, "Oh, how are you doing? It's really good to see." Your hands may come out here to start moving around. There'll be facial muscles all lifting up to smile. So there's a whole set of unconscious response happening for that situation. Now, if that was a salesperson that suddenly became very direct with you, very sort of demanding, and say, "Look, I want just sign this contract. You really need your, I don't know, whatever it is, your driveway tarmac or something." So but I don't want it. So you would have a completely different persona from the one that came up when you were dealing with your friends, and like a little dog or something. If you see a little dog, you're going to go, "Oh, look at how lovely you are." And you'll rub his little head and tickle his belly. But you're not going to do that with your friend. You're not going to open the door and go, "Oh, look at you," start rubbing his or her head and tickling his or her belly. It's recognizing that we've got all these different sort of characteristics, these personas, but also through experiences of trauma, through difficulties, and through things that happen to us in life, we develop these unconscious responses. So it could be a part that's very highly anxious because it is fearful, like we said before, people may hurt me, or if I go down that road where I was beat up 10 years ago, that may happen again. So there's this anxiety, or from a child that had no love from their parents. I'm not loved. I don't deserve love. I'm not good enough for love. And there's this deep part that is creating these unhelpful responses, these emotions. So with hypnosis, for me, it's about, I do a lot of work of trying to focus in. Like I said, hypnosis is focusing in on these aspects of us. So to sort of ask about, does it work for everybody? And For me, it's about really the person. The person, some people may fear it. They may think this is some weird, strange thing that's happening. I don't know if I really like this. And that person even seems a little bit creepy and I don't trust them that much. So if you get this type of...
You seem very nice, Stephen. I wasn't coming into your practice fearing you. I'd be thinking, this seems like a man whose heart is in the right place. So I guess there's something in that.
Of course. And that's how I don't get these problems. But but it could be that's going to create a resistance. So that's going to stop you from getting involved and engaging in the process. Or it could be a guy and it's a woman that goes and she feels a little bit unsure. I don't know this guy and this guy what is he doing here? So there could be a fear that will stop it. There's some people that have got very controlling minds that they'd always like to be in control, and you can kind of work around about it a little bit. But technically, I suppose it's trying to get away from this fascinating idea of the spooky hypnosis and actually recognize that everything that is happening really is it's the power of our own minds. As if I look at myself as a facilitator to help somebody to explore their mind and help change happen within their mind, or to explore past lives, or to gain spiritual experience. It's a way of focusing the mind. And even the word hypnosis, it's a Greek word from hypnos, the Greek god of sleep. And hypnosis isn't anything to do with sleep. It probably there's suggestions given that you will relax and that you'll be, I don't know, feeling sleepy or something. But really, that's just a suggestion to put you in some kind of state. If you think about stage hypnosis, they're not sleeping, they're not running about flapping like chickens or something. So that it shows that it's not a sleep process or even a relaxation. It's simply about helping the mind to go a little bit more deeper in its focus, and to help change happen. And I always remember I had a medium friend, a really good medium friend. He was probably one of the best I'd ever seen. He's no longer with us now, but I always remember him standing with him, and we were doing this sort of charity gig thing. Well, he was doing a charity gig thing. It was my brother that had put it on, and I brought Richard in. And I always remember him saying, right, okay, I'll need to go on. He always get nervous before he'd done any things. And he said, I just need to get myself in the zone. And he just went like that. And I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, that's self-hypnosis. That's what he is doing. He's actually focusing his mind more internally to then access and to experience what he needed to experience. So that's where I think sometimes the word hypnosis gives us a little bit of a misdirection as to really what's happening. It may instill a little bit of the placebo, that something magical is going to happen. If we believe that something magical will happen, it's maybe got more chance that it's going to happen. So it could help reinforce some of the things that we look for with the change. But for me, it's all about, it's the mind, it's the person's mind. I'm facilitating someone to be able to explore the mind and to help it to heal, to change, to experience, I did that. I'm trying to think, did I cover all the things you asked, or was there something?
I think you did. I think you did. And I think you've done very well at explaining it there. I want to come on to sort of talking in more specifically about some of the things that, life throws us challenges, Stephen, and choices we must make. And a lot of us struggle with that. And you very, candidly in the show notes that I was reading through talked about, the fact that life can throw us challenges and we must often make choices that are presented to us. But at the end of the day, we have a soul journey and a path that we're meant to be on. So I guess the question that I'm asking you is, how should one be, dealing with these challenges and choices that we have to make? And how would you say if we know if we're on the right path that we're meant to be or not? Because a lot of us might be thinking, what the bloody hell is going on? Am I on the right path? Am I not? Stephen, help me.
It's probably one of the biggest... One of the biggest questions is, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? We're all muddling through life, I guess, trying to figure out what is it. Now, one of the biggest answers I get a lot in sessions with these between life sessions is that to trust. It's almost like trust, and there's nothing happening by accident, that everything will be presented. Now, it's our choice to decide what we do. If you think about a challenge, the best way I can describe this whole concept is a computer game again. If you think about the little character bobbing along like a little Super Mario guy, and then here comes, I can't remember, was it Ghosts or something, but like they're there, and he hits them and he dies and he goes back. Now you don't start screaming and going, "Oh my God, my character is dead and this is devastating." You just start again, and then you come along. But you think, right, wait a minute, I get killed there, so let me try jumping. Oh, I'm over the ghosts, and then you go up, and then you go into the next level, and it gets a little bit harder. Maybe there's 3 ghosts this time, and you need to jump higher or onto a platform this time. And as the game progresses, the game gets harder and harder to the point where, let's say you're now in level 36, and this is pretty intense stuff. You're a bit of a master of this game because you've been playing it so long, but you're damn good at it, and you're getting your way through it. And if you think about that game now, let's say you take all the challenges out of it, and you just have this little character that goes up the ladders, next level, up the ladders to the end. Level 2, well, hey, here we go, back, right, look, ladders. After about probably 2 minutes, you'll be thinking, this game is crap. This is boring. What am I bothering with this? And that's how I see life, is that life is thrown as these challenges. There are challenges to help us grow and to expand and to be able to develop as a soul, I suppose, and to go through difficulties. And if you look back in your life, I know that I can look back and look at some of the real difficult times, like breakups or work environment situations. I can look back and I think that was damn hard and horrible experience at the time. But do you know what? I'm much better for the experience. I've grew from it. I've got better at what I can do. Even if it was a work environment, you're now maybe more experienced in that role, and someone else comes up against that difficulty, then you can say, "Oh, try this. This worked for me quite a while ago." And so you bring experience, you bring wisdom, and if you think about the game, for me, the game is the same. If you think about guides, or spirit guides, they are, again, another being who has potentially went through this game and mastered it, like we've talked about, getting through like at level 37, and they're there now to support us, to help us, guide us through this game, because it can be difficult and it can be challenging, and we need that little bit of support. So, and I mentioned the thing earlier, there was a guy, the book that I read, Journey of Souls, way back in 2010, and this is what really fascinated me.
The book by Dr. Michael Newton.
Yeah, that took me into the realms of using hypnosis in a spiritual way, because he went through, again, he came from quite a disbelieving perspective. I think his parents had been in more of an academical background, maybe even science or something, but he did some like 7,000 test cases through his career, and it was all about this past the death point, where it all seemed to then move into soul groups and how we all come down together in groups to play out. So again, in a past life, your mother in a past life could be your sister in this life, or your brother. So we just played different roles, a bit like a play where we take we go into a new play, but the new play, you've got a different character this time, and we play it out, and that character may have interactions with some of the other characters in that play, and it develops the story, it develops the I guess from the spiritual perspective in life, is it develops the growth and what we need to allow us to go through those challenges. So a really difficult person in our life could be the person that is actually giving us the greatest growth that we need. So yeah, that, I've lost my train of thought there, but I think it's this Michael Newton book. It really was bringing all these different people from all different walks of life saying the same things: guides, soul groups. Life is for learning and for growing and for expanding. And again, that's why I like the computer game analogy. It's like, I love quantum physics, right? I think it's fascinating. It takes us right into...
I do as well. You can go down so many rabbit holes with it, can't you?
That is. But the beautiful thing, it fits so well to what we're talking about here, because it shows us that we're in some kind of energetic construct. If you look at the whole of the universe is supposed to be built atomically. It's the building blocks of the universe is atoms, but an atom is 99%, 99.9999999999996% nothing. It's the hydrogen atom. But when you look at it, it's got negative charged electrons spinning around the
Yes.
atom, and inside it is a proton and a neutron. Okay, so there's nothing else in there other than the proton and neutron. I always remember there was someone said if the atom was the Earth, then the proton and the nucleus, the proton and the neutron would be the size of a football field. So that's how small that is. So then when you go into that, it's then quarks. So what the hell is a quark? Well, it has no size, it has no weight, it has no dimension. It's appearing and disappearing. It's an event. And this is, again, what we are constructed of. So, so where does it disappear to? I think, is it going into different dimensions that we're not aware of? But this is the building of our universe, our kind of experience. So this is how I see it, is that you could look at atoms as pixels maybe, but it's like the game that it's a big construct that we are interacting in and interacting through with each other to go about growing and learning and advancing as souls.
Very interesting. I want to ask you about, kind of point I really picked out on in your notes was about people kind of, learning to understand more about themselves. And I guess that really does tie into what we were speaking earlier on about the past life regression. Because obviously you've got a lot of experience helping individuals, to delve deeper in terms of why they've got these beliefs, because, a lot of what you're working with, by the sounds of it, is people's belief systems and getting them to sort of question why they've got that belief in the first place. And like you said, a lot of it really does tie back to past experiences. I've been watching some really interesting programs recently all about beliefs and how you have to change them and how beliefs really do drive thoughts and then actions. To talk more about people getting to understand themselves and to really look at themselves and to question, because a lot of the time we will believe, and of course we do, we all believe that our beliefs are true, but our beliefs aren't physical, they're not tangible, they are a construct of our mind and experiences. How would you say someone can start to look at their beliefs more closely to help them understand themselves? And I guess more importantly, where those beliefs might have come from, in someone's background.
Yeah. If we only had some kind of therapy, something like that can help us to focus a bit more, maybe something like hypnosis.
Yeah, I was expecting you, Stephen, to be slightly biased towards that.
Yeah, and this is the thing is, I mean, if you look back to old cultures and old like Buddhists and stuff, they're all using things like meditation, where they start to explore their being and what they are and how things are. So that meditation, again, is another form of focus, just as hypnosis is focus. And even the thing about hypnosis, the interesting thing is, even within that, there's belief. So we're actually helping someone to believe that they're going to some state where they can resolve something, and it's that belief. And when we talk about parts, again, it's beliefs, as you say, that sit at the heart of all these things. Like we talked about an example of bullying. So there's a part of us that holds a belief that people are nasty, people will hurt me, I don't want to be around people. So that's another belief. But this is the way that the mind works. The mind it's using its experiences to develop its survival, its ways of adapting. And so again, like one of the analogies I use sometimes is like a door. And so I've got a door behind me in my room. Now, you've never ever opened that specific door, but within probably microseconds, you could have that door open. You'll put your hand will, you won't even consciously decide to do it. Your hand will come out, your hand will grip the handle, you'll probably turn it or twist it, push it or pull it, but you can through these micro movements, and that's your unconscious mind firing all these potentials based on other experiences to how to open that door. So push, pull, twist, and then there's a door open, and you've just
subconsciously you're doing that. There's so many things.
Just about everything is subconscious. You're always looking to the past. Everything is looking to the past and how we deal with thing now. So it's again, it could be work. You could be sitting there and someone says, "I've got this big problem. This client has came and he is, I don't know, he's done something, whatever." Now, the first thing you'll do is you just wait. you go into this strange little trance where your mind will just blank for a second, and then an idea will come or some thought will come. So that's the interesting thing, is that the unconscious is delivering us now some possibilities. It's what is it getting those possibilities? Probably from our own experiences. So if someone's coming and asking you for your expert opinion on something, you are then drawing on your experiences to kind of give some potential solution, or say, well, I had something similar once with a client. I did this and it actually worked out quite well. And the person might say, oh, well, that's quite a good idea, actually. That could maybe work. I could try that. So this is showing you that the mind is continually using the resource of its experience and its past to work to do. And I mean, in fact, if you look at me, I'm sitting talking to you, and my hands are flapping about, and I do this quite a lot, and I don't know why.
I like it. It's expressionate. It's an underlying bit of passion in talking about what you like.
I did what was it? It was a past life summit, and I remember seeing the video, and my hands were out here. They looked huge because they were near the camera, and I was talking, and I'm thinking, look, I look like, remember, I don't know if you remember Kenny Everett with the big fingers, but that's what I look like.
Yes.
So I look this big hands flapping about. But the reason I'm saying it is that, why are my hands flapping about? Because I don't think I've got any Italian blood, but what my mind seems to think is that it can express itself better to you by moving hands about or moving facial expressions. So there's so many communications of the mind and the unconscious mind doing things that we don't even walk. Think about walking. Think about the amount of balance that's going on there. Like if you trip a little bit, your whole body will go into some kind of self-correcting balance. There's muscles moving, there's limbs moving, and we don't need to think about doing that. It just all happens. So it's showing you the intricacy of the mind and how fascinating that it really is, that there's billions of neural pathways and neurons that are within the mind that are firing all these experiences, or creating these responses based on its experiences. So start to show you that we can talk about past life regression, but it's kind of just showing you now that it's maybe more of a fuller understanding of who we are, and that there's more to us than just this life, and more to us than there was somebody muddling along. As you said, purpose. Again, it's the fascinating thing through things like Between Life is that it seems to be that we've came here with some kind of expectation of what we will learn and what we will go through. So a lot of these challenges will be presented to us at the right times. These certain people will come into our lives that will present us with those potentials for growth, or challenge, whatever it will be, or assistance and help. So it's almost like it's lined up for us. And I do like the idea of free will. It sounds almost like, well, if everything's predetermined like that, then isn't there even any free will? Are we just playing out something that's been created for us? But the free will is that it's our choice. We can, just like in a computer game, we can decide to just sit there at the start of the game and not even play it, or we can decide to take our time, or we can decide to try and go as fast as we can, or it's our choice whether we do it. And we may avoid a challenge if we wish to avoid it, but it's probably not going to help us with the growth that we need. So there's a likelihood that at some point then that gift of the problem will be given back to us again to help us to experience, to help us to grow and to learn.
I think you explain that well. I think that I've been doing a lot of reading recently into how we are a series of I'm so bad at explaining things in a scientific way. And there's a guy called Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he says if you can't explain something well to someone else so they understand, it means you don't know it well enough. So, but we are a series of brain synapses connections. And then when we live in these same habits every day, we're just firing off the same sequence of chemical connections within the brain. And it's when we start to change, we actually form new neuro connections. And you know where I'm going with this. Yeah. I'm trying to lead on basically from what you said, but it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah, everything's a habit. That's true.
Yes, yes, that is true.
If you think about life, you get up in the morning, you probably do the same routine. You may brush your teeth, you'll have a shower, you'll choose some clothes, you'll then maybe drive the exact same way to work. You'll do the same movements, so the steering wheel, you'll go in and you'll do a job that you've learned that you kind of know how to do, and you'll repeat certain aspects that are happening consistently. And maybe for me, it was an accountant. It was budgets and forecasts and month ends and accruing and prepaying and all. So we've got all this, like, almost like as that life is, everything that we do is a habit and a routine. And if we want to change and develop and grow, then we need to break out of some of these sort of constructs of repeating processes that the brain runs through. Because it's like we said, the walking, it's a fantastic and amazing process that we wouldn't want to break out of that one, because that's something that's really useful for us. But again, it's maybe then looking at what processes, what habits, what are the routines that are in my life that are actually holding me back. And at the same point, but even behind that, we can go back to beliefs. What beliefs are actually stopping me? Is it a fear? Fear is one of the fear's a good thing when you're in danger, because it's a life-saving survival fight or flight response. But fear also can be the thing that holds you back, that stops you from taking that chance, or from, I don't know, get out and meeting new people, because you've got this old fear from the belief that people hurt you, as we said earlier. So it's about it. And this is what's fascinating, is that we're exploring the mind. And as we said earlier, clinical hypnotherapy, finding the beliefs, the spiritual hypnotherapy, exploring it, it's all the same thing. Everything's about our moving forward. It's all about our working through our challenges, our blocks, our limitations, taking us to maybe the highest potential that we can be, make a great performance in the game this time.
Fascinating. Do you know what? I can't believe how quickly the conversation between us has gone. I feel like in some ways we've barely scratched the surface. I think you make so many wonderful and interesting points. And if you do want to find out more about Stephen, you can go to his website. The website is in the show notes. Stephen, I'm going to ask you to do us an honour and close the episode with a final thought or a monologue. Now, some guests, it literally is short and sweet in 2 words. Some people, it's a whole monologue. So you can say as much or as little as you would like to kindly close the show today.
Okay. So I think, as we said earlier, trust in yourself. Trust that whatever you're going through, it's been presented because you're capable of working your way through it. So the other thing that comes up a lot in sessions, which I always like to share, is about nature. Nature's, for me, is I'll go for my walks to the park every day, and it's the reminder. I think we live in a very artificial life,
we do now. Yeah, I agree with you there.
And I think when we talk about this incredible universe of atoms and this construct that's happened, something like nature is the reminder that is the natural state, and that we are also part of that. And I think that's why people get so much from nature, is because we recognize that that's what we're part of, and who we are and what we are, and get away from this artificial construct. Not to say that it's wrong. Artificial constructs is great. It keeps us nice and dry from the rain and the weather and the elements, and it creates a wonderful system in some sort of ways, and people behave themselves. But it's remember nature, because that is the wonderful thing of creation, of what the source consciousness or God, or it's all a big construct which we're all part of. Oh.
Beautiful, interesting, and couldn't agree more. Stevie, thank you so much for coming on to the Soul Sync. It's been a delight to talk to you. I absolutely loved talking to Stephen. He made so many interesting points. And when I actually listened back to that conversation, it taught me things all over again, actually. It's amazing what listening back to something can do. You hear things differently a second time. So it's getting near to Christmas. I hope you're all prepared. I finally got my presents wrapped. That job is done, out the way. I'm an internet shopper. I'm someone who just can't stop shopping on the internet. And there's just like an army of parcels coming, which is always really bad for the environment, actually. But I've gone this year with gift kind of boxes. Party in a box, I call it. Party in a box. But it's been lovely to have you here. I always love you, my dear guest. It's so lovely to have you stop by. So until next time, much love.